Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another fantastic episode on the Unleashing Potentials podcast. I'm your host, Bernadette, and joining me today is Cori Myka. How are you?
I am great. And you nailed the name there on the first go. We didn't practice that.
I just guessed, but
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, Corey, I love the background that you have there. Are you by the beach right now? Where are you?
I am not by the beach, but I just like to keep it with me all the time because it is my favorite place.
Yeah.
Uh, my business dreams and aspirations I set many years ago was that I teach 4 times a year in warm tropical places because I do not live in a warm tropical place. I'm in
Yeah, yeah.
Seattle, Washington. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So, Corey, tell us who you are and what you do and how long you've been doing it for and why.
sure. So it goes along with these warm tropical places. What am I teaching in these warm tropical places? So I'm the founder and owner of Calm Within Adult Swim, and we teach adult beginning and overcoming fear in water. So people who say, I love the water, as long as it doesn't go past here, it doesn't go past 5 feet.
Yeah.
So those are our folks, anywhere from people who have had a traumatic or negative incident in the water to people who just haven't had the opportunity. It wasn't part of their upbringing or their culture or their family priorities, somewhere along those lines. So those are the folks that we work with. So
Mhm.
yeah, here in Seattle, we warm our pool up. I'm looking at my pool out there. It's to a nice toasty 94 degrees, so it's easy and lovely. But yeah, we teach online, in person, and on retreat.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Well,
Mm.
this was meant to be because I'm an adult and I don't know how to swim and I don't like deep water. So I'm excited to dive deep into those phobias that us adults face. But
Mhm.
let me ask you this so we get to know you a bit more. Did you always do the work that you're doing now, or what different fields have you worked in that led to this profession?
Well, the truth is, this has been my thing for a very long time. The first person, you got to watch what those 5-year-olds say. The first person I offered to teach to swim was my aunt when we were on a houseboat trip when I was 5 years old. It's okay, Auntie, I'll teach you how to swim.
Yeah.
And then I've actually had my husband and I started this company 25 years ago. So we have been doing this for a hot minute. Um, and previous to that, it was in that early 20s stage of trying different things out. And I actually moved to Seattle because I did a 1-year volunteer job. Kind of like I always describe it as domestic Peace Corps sort of thing.
Yeah.
So moved up here, played around with the idea of getting into something like occupational therapy or water therapy or something like that when we decided, well, let's try out our own swim school. Let's just see. We had nothing to lose at the time. No kids, weren't married, didn't, it was an easy risk to give it a try. And then, yeah, 25 years later, we're still doing it. He's also a firefighter and does swiftwater rescue and that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
branched out a bit that way for our family. But
Oh wow, that's awesome. How did you guys
Mhm.
meet?
Well,
There's
we
always
met
a
at the
story.
pool. So after that 1 year of doing that volunteer work, I worked at a place. It is called Bailey Boucher. So it was a place for people with HIV/AIDS. And so after doing that for a year on a volunteer basis, going back to the pool is the easiest, fastest job for me to get back into while I figured out what I was doing with my grown-up life. And there was a new pool that had opened. It was actually it's kind of a groundbreaking pool in the area because it's a warm water therapy pool the city had opened. And so he was working there as one of the evening managers. I was there coming in to do some assisted therapy kind of things with folks, and
Mhm.
the rest was history.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. That's really cool.
Mhm.
So tell us some of the experiences you've had, with teaching adults how to swim. What has been some of their stories or phobias of water?
Mhm.
Because I think all of us have different fear of water as to why we don't like it.
Well, at the end of the day, the core thing that sometimes people don't notice, but then they're like, oh, right, yes. The end of the day, the really core thing is the only activity that we do that, except for if you're a space traveler, like your background shows,
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
only activity we do that we don't have access to air while we're doing it for
Mm,
some period of time. And so, on one hand, you could say that's a phobia, right? But on the other hand, this is a good thing to have some heightened alert around if you don't have access to air. So, that's like the core nugget for everybody that I'm going to end up somewhere. I'm going to be too tired. I'm going to run out of energy. I won't be able to keep doing what I'm doing. Or I'll fall through the water and I'll be at the bottom and I won't be able to get to the top. But it all centers around this idea of whether or not I can get air easily anytime I want. So that's the key piece to it.
hmm Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. Okay, I'll share a little bit of my journey, I guess, not knowing how to
Yeah.
swim. Even though I was born in a tropical country, there's lots of beaches surrounding different parts where I used to live in Haiti. Um, I never been in the water. Like I never know how to swim. No one taught me how to
Hmm.
do it. So I never know how. And then I come here where I am in Canada. You get those 2-year-old kids that are kicking and swimming like fish. So I,
Hmm.
I just don't do it. I would say out of shame of not knowing how to do it. The shame part, it's from me as well, but it stems from the outside perspective of what people think I should know or do as an
Hmm.
adult, right? How can I, even other people who are in similar boat as me, overcome that stigma and shame of, expected to know how to do something you never taught how to do.
Hmm. Well, one of the things, I mean, the big thing is to normalize your experience, I believe. And so you're you are not the first person I've heard that has grown up in a place where there's a lot of water. And so there's this idea like, well, of course, if you grow up on a tropical island, you know how to swim. But it's very dangerous for people who don't know how to swim. And one way for adults to protect children
Mhm.
is to tell them to be afraid, to keep them away. If their children never get in, then they're never going to drown. And so, if we just remove that experience, parents or other adults or whatever, and as a child, you're given this message that it's dangerous to stay away, these kinds of things, then of course you're going to have a fear, and of course you're going to stay away. And then over time, just like you say, when you see, well, gee, other people are doing it, they're not different from me, really. So then we end up with this shame narrative and this like, what's wrong with me? Well, you were just being a good kid, right? You were just like being safe,
Yeah.
trying to like do what people around you were telling you to do, which is to stay away, which, especially if you're in a place where there's lots of beaches and things, there's
Mhm.
a lot of variables. And so giving the message to children to stay away so they stay safe, it's not a bad thing, but we have to balance that. If we don't balance that with giving them safe opportunities to develop that, and you didn't get that opportunity, there were other things happening in your life. Um, and so you didn't get that opportunity.
Yeah.
So yeah, not your fault. And here's the other piece. I don't know if you know this, but half of adults don't know how to swim.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, you're really not alone. You're really not alone. It feels like you're alone when you're looking at people who can swim, but you have to also look and recognize all the people who are not swimming, because there's a lot of people who are not swimming, or they're in, but they're not getting. I affectionately call it the mom swim. They're like keeping their heads out of the water because, I don't have to do my hair and makeup, which also might be because I don't really know how to put my face in the water. I'm not really comfortable under the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for sharing.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned not putting the face in the water. I'm assuming that's a type of phobia. There's so many of them, I don't even know what they are. Is there a fear of water for phobia? What's the name for it? Do you know?
Aquaphobia would be,
Okay.
yeah, aquaphobia yeah, is what you would call it. And
Okay.
like I said, some people would identify that way. Some people would identify as, I just don't know how. But I do like to help people again tap into it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to have some hesitancy. It's how we relate to that and how we work with it and how we listen to it with curiosity versus blaming and shaming, right? The blame and shame is going to keep us from figuring it out and just having us feel small in the world versus, yeah, it's okay that when I put my face in the water or I think about putting my face in the water, I feel fear because, especially if you've never done it, anything you've never done, go to water or otherwise, we feel a little tense about. It's normal. You're
Yeah, it is.
normal.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've seen the movie Jaws. That doesn't help. And those kind of terrifying underwater movie scenes or shows, it doesn't
Hmm.
help. Although there are actual shark attacks. I've heard quite a bit in the States. And I'm sure it's been with people who know how to swim to be able to go that far to get attacked. Even people who know how to swim drown. I don't know how
Yes.
that happens, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm really glad that you brought that up because that is true. And this is where I say our swimmers are some of the safest swimmers out there. Not that they can do big, fancy things. The thing that people who can swim, what they miss out on is they have learned to rely on the physical skills. I can do the physical skills of pulling through the water. But what they're missing is the mental skills. They're missing the part that they tune into themselves. They do things like, hey, let's go swim over to that thing over there. And they're more focused on getting to that thing than they are with tuning into their body. And so they miss some signals. And then they just get going faster and faster and faster till suddenly they're in a panic mode.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
that's really the biggest danger in the water is when we're in a panic mode. Because you don't, even though you might know how to move your arms and legs, if you're in panic, you're not connected enough to your body to be effective with understanding what's happening in your body.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Speaking of body, let's talk about the capacity of the lungs because it's physically exercising. I think people who know how to do it well, it's natural for them to not be able to consciously thinking of how much breath they need or
Mhm.
when they need to stop. When you teach adults, do you teach them, about the lungs, how to breathe and how long to stay underwater?
So the first thing that we teach people about the lungs and about breathing is that you know how to do it. You're really good at it.
Yeah.
Right? If you weren't really good at it, you wouldn't be here. Like, it is so innate to who we are.
Mhm.
And we have to start, I mean, we have a paradigm we call the foundation of change. And the first piece of that is noticing where you are. And the second piece of it is where you want to go. And so noticing where you are right now, look at how good you are at breathing, Bernadette. You haven't like gotten blue, you haven't
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
hyperventilated, right? You haven't done any of these things. So you're super good at it. Like, so that's the narrative we need to start with. And then where I want to go is I want to feel confident in my air, or I want to feel calm about my air, or at ease, or something like that. Common things. So when we go to put our face in the water, we take a breath that we know how to take. We put our face in the water and we pay attention to how we're feeling versus I'm supposed to be in for 3 or 10 or 20 or pushing ourselves to a certain amount of time.
Hmm.
We go in, even I even teach people don't even put your whole face in the water to begin with. It's just it could be the surface of the water here, and you're going and
Hmm.
just holding your breath for a little bit, paying attention to,
Hmm.
do I feel calm? Am I freaking out? Do I have air? Like paying attention to the natural signals that you know how to interpret.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's
Hmm.
when we get outside of ourselves, it's that idea, like I said, we're swimming to there. It's when we get outside of ourselves for performance tasking, like I'm supposed to
Hmm.
do it like this, or they're doing it like that. That's what screws it up.
Hmm. Yeah.
But when we tune in, I know how to breathe. I'm really good at breathing.
Yeah.
I know what holding my breath feels like. I know the signals in my body when I'm ready to exchange my air.
Hmm.
So that we then start with a sense of confidence versus, it's this big, overwhelming thing that I'm supposed to do it like somebody else says.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I remember years and years ago we went to Mexico and they do lots of fun stuff there.
Mm.
We did diving in the swimming pool, which was fun. And then they said there are other people who do diving in the ocean. I said, "No, that's not my type of fun." Then we went snorkeling and
Mm.
put on goggles. I'm looking down. I look that way. All I see is pitch black, blue fish and just other things around. I said, I think I might die today. But I didn't. It was stepping out, getting out of the fear and mindset I had around it. And there were other people who know how to swim, so I just had to trust and kind
Mm.
of do it afraid. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, fear lies in the mind. It's a perfect image that you gave of when you look over there and it's dark, and then your mind made up a story, like that's where the sharks are, or something
Yeah.
like that. Right?
Yeah.
Death is over there. I
Mhm.
mean, fear lies in the mind, in the story that we tell ourselves, and maybe even coming back into, okay, wait, but right here, I'm not dead. Right
Yeah.
here, I have air coming through my snorkel. Right here, I actually am safe in this moment. But in the future, I might, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's for future me. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where working with the mind, I say 80% of learning to swim has to do with the mental steps, and only about 20% has to do with the actual physical steps.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So do you also do online swimming lessons? How does that work? I've never heard that before, so tell us more.
I know it seems crazy, doesn't it? When I first put it out there, I started putting the material together in 2018 and um, published in 2019, which was serendipitous and great.
Mm.
But what I find is most swimming lessons, they focus on the physical skills and they take adults too fast and do too much, and they don't break things down well enough for them. So our classes, we know how to break it down. And so I just put that online, and I broke it down even smaller since people would be doing it on their own. Their assignment when they're ready to go to a pool is to go to find a lifeguarded pool, community center pool, to be able to do the steps. But I'm giving people such tiny steps that they are able to do it and able to bring in information in a way that they weren't bringing it in before. Because most of the time, people are, like you said, in the narrative of their shame or their embarrassment.
Hmm.
And so we're not really creating spaces to be curious and to learn and to understand how the water, your body and the water work together. So we're really giving people that, crafting that space for them. And it's amazing. My folks who do it online, their comments, their questions at the time that they come in is just like our in-person students when they take it step by step. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really great.
Yeah, yeah, thank you for sharing. Earlier you mentioned your husband is a firefighter. Uh,
Mhm.
well, if he were to speak with us now, what would be his intake on his experience when he does his job? I know in the summer, especially where I am, I'm sure where you are too, there's lots of people who do crazy, stupid things they're not supposed to do in water. So
Mm-hmm.
what would he say if we were to ask him this question?
Well, the big thing for him, in terms of his work as a water rescuer, is he spends a lot of time on the training side. And so it's actually really focusing on the firefighters, the first responders themselves. And it's giving them space, just like I'm giving space for my students who come to learn to swim, is giving them space to not have to be more than who they are in terms of their swimming ability. Because these folks, they like to go help. They're used to going out and doing, but they don't all have the swimming skills or abilities to do that. And they can push their way through on land. There's some things on land that they can push their way through that they can't in the water. And so he's really designed the system and set up the system for there to be different levels of response so that each first responder is able to evaluate and to be able to help at their ability, at their level. And versus just like everybody's doing this thing. This is the first time he went and did somebody else's class. He's like, I'm sitting in a room where half of these people don't really know how to swim.
Ooh.
And we're all being expected to do the same skill set. And this doesn't make any sense. This is putting us at risk. Therefore, we're not able to do our job. And so that was his big thing, is to go in and you have to be honest about it and true about it. And it's okay. And there's a different spot for everybody in their skill set. And we want to know what that is.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
Is there anything else you want my audience to get from this episode or anything that you want to share I haven't asked you about?
Mm. Well, I'd love for if somebody is curious, we're coming into the winter time. This is like a great time if we're um to start to learn to swim, to start, I know it's not what people typically think of the season,
Mm.
but learning to swim as an adult, you want to give yourself the grace of space and time. And so that you can have time to work through those mental steps and the physical steps. When people started, on June 15th for the summer season, it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Or when they started, um, you know, January 15th, because they're going on that winter vacation to someplace warm, there's a lot of pressure on it. So I think this actually is the best time of year for people to go out and to have so congratulations to you because I know you're starting.
Yeah, 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 thank you. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. Yeah, and I'm doing it with my kids. I know there are lots of programs, regardless of people where people are in the world, that you can do things as a family unit to learn.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
it's gonna be interesting.
How old are your kids, if I can ask?
Yeah, 14 and 7.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's an interesting age. So your 14-year-old is able to have some autonomy of self-responsibility.
Mm.
The 7-year-old is pretty good at it, at that age.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he
It's,
did swimming over the summer.
ah,
Yeah, this is gonna be his second time. And I think they're gonna put him back to level one,
mhm.
just because. And there are other kids there as well. They swim in group in their classes and they sing. They just had fun. It's just different
Good.
ways of connecting with the water and overcoming fears.
Yeah. And I would invite too, when we first started our swim school, we did start with kids and we took out the level system because what we found is just that language where you said go back to level one.
Yeah.
It has that little tinge of not passing or not doing something right or something like that. And I just don't, I think we know and by watching him, he's changed. He's learned. And so and that's what he's doing, and that's his only job to do.
Mhm.
And as long as he keeps going and you and your 14-year-old go in a way that you feel good,
Mhm.
um, then it's a natural byproduct that you're going to start learning. It's when we add that shame and blame and should and finger pointing of all these things, this is when we start to have that regression. And
Yeah.
we don't really understand ourselves in the water. And that's what it's really about.
Yeah, yeah. And I watched the Summer Olympic. I'm
Mm.
just in awe that anybody can swim as good or as fast. What are your thoughts on, on the Olympians and how they do it?
Yeah. Well, my thought on the Olympians, what I find really fascinating is if you watch the Olympic swimmers over time. So if you were to watch the freestyle race this year, this summer, and you were to watch the freestyle race of 50 years ago, the stroke would be completely different. It's a different stroke entirely that they swam. And I think this is so important and pivotal because people see this front crawl, this overarm stroke with the side breathing, like that is swimming. This is like the pinnacle thing. That's what swimming means. But it doesn't. That's just what the technology for the fastest way to get through the water has been developed over time.
Mhm.
It's not what keeps you safe. It's not what makes you a great swimmer. That is a form of it. And so I think it's really interesting to see that change over time. Or if you watch um, and I'm trying to come up, I don't think with the right word,
Mhm.
Paralympics, that's the word.
Oh,
If you
yeah.
watch the Paralympics, you watch the Paralympic swimmers, that is really a testament to it's really about understanding our own bodies and the water, not an exact science of a way through getting through the water. Because those folks, they have their bodies are have all different abilities and different ways of moving through the water, and it's spectacular.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have so much respect for Paralympians because, oh my goodness, if you sit down or just hear their stories, there's so
Mm-hmm.
much power and healing and transformation through that. Yeah. Yeah.
And that adaptability that we're not sitting around saying, I'm supposed to be like this. I am like this, and I can interact and move and have a beautiful and amazing life and a beautiful, in this case, move through the water in amazing, inspiring ways.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
We're
agree.
no less than. We're just have our own ways of doing it, which is beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing. Corey, as we wrap up this amazing episode, what do you want people to get out of this episode?
Um, well, I would love for people to know that wherever they're at in their journeys, it's exactly the right place, and to use their curiosity to come in to make that next step forward. And if it's swimming, love to see you over at Adult Swim Lesson. You can pop in, do a little online work first to understand some of those differences. And
Mhm.
if it's not swimming, it's something else. Give yourself time and grace to be curious and loving to yourself to move
Yeah.
into your next step.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, I have two questions for you. The first one I ask every guest, it is, what is the meaning of life for you?
What is the meaning of life for me? Well, I'm glad I didn't listen to these questions ahead of time. The meaning of, I would have pondered for a long time. But
Yeah.
the first thing that pops into my head, that is a core focus for me. The meaning of life for me is about love.
Mm,
Love for self, love for others, love for the planet.
mhm,
Grounding ourselves in love.
mhm. I love that. Thank you. And last
Mhm.
question is, where can people find you, connect with you, and learn how to swim?
Yeah, so adultswimlesson.com. That's our website. So one swim lesson, adultswimlesson.com. And then on the socials, calm within adult swim.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, Corey, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all you do. I needed this conversation, so thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad this worked out. Perfect
Yeah.
timing.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank
Wonderful
you.
time in your swim lessons.
Yeah. Thank you.